now. Hello, YouTube. This is Lightrocket speaking to you directly. I would like to make this video to explain what is going on with the Taric builds. Maybe it's a halfway through the season or whatever it is video. But basically to explain why am I going rod phasers every single game, and why are you not seeing the usual Taric itemization complexity that is usually seeing lots of different builds with different runes and whatever's going on. Why are you going only this build? Is this build just so goated that it's like the unheard of crazy Taric build that you must go every game? It's not, but there is a reason that I'm going only this build, and I'd like to explain that because I'm just looking at my thumbnails and seeing like, oh my god, these thumbnails, like, they look basically the exact same. And so I had a video just go up with it was slightly edited by a different editor, and it's doing pretty well. And I don't know if that's just because the thumbnail looks a little bit different than normal, or if it's because it's edited, unsure. But anyway, I'd like to just cover that because a lot of people are asking like what happened to PTA, what happened to Lethal, what happened to all that. I'd like to explain that now. So first, let's just get into it, right? Why am I going Rod? What does Rod have that all the other mythics don't? And I'll explain Rod's strengths before I explain the weaknesses of everything else, which is, first of all, that Rod itself is an item that gives AP, it gives HP, it gives a Catalyst passive, which Taric loves because he burns mana, and then you enhance that passive by 50%. It gives a ability haste for free on mythic passive, so as you go through the game, you'll eventually stack more and more ability haste, which is what you want for your E. You get a free level out of the item, which is ridiculous. It solves all of your mana issues, which is really helpful if you like spamming. And yeah, basically it allows a spam playstyle. And what I mean by spam is you have the mana and the ability to spam your Q as much as you possibly can in order to fully heal your teammates. Now, if you play something more like a tierless Iceborne, right? Because some people, even in support, decide, hey, why would I build tier? Why don't I just be smart with my mana usage? Well, you can be smart with your mana usage, but if you're smart with it, you don't get the full effectiveness of being able to do what Taric does, which is basically just Q spam, right? If you play literally perfectly and just go for like a CDR stun build, you can be, hypothetically more effective. If you're starting at full mana bar, you probably have enough to last the whole fight. However, if there's extended fights, if laning phase is going to last a long time, I like Rod better, even on support, right? There's an argument for going Locket or Shirelia's first as a mythic, which is 2,500, which is a lot cheaper than going something like Rod, which is 2,800, and then you have to stack it. However, if you compare it to a gameplay of like having Shirelia's plus tier or Shirelia's plus Locket, or Locket plus tier, that's 2,900 gold, whereas Rod is just 28, not to mention the scaling and the effectiveness of it. In my opinion, if a game is going longer than 25 minutes, you should always be going Rod. Every single time. If a game is going longer than 25 minutes, you should always be going Rod every game. So, PTA, it still shows PTA because that is the ideal rune for people that are new to Taric. However, once you get used to Taric and how to use the phase rush kiting, you want to jump into a build like this where you even drop even more CDR off. You don't grab the Transcendence for now Solarity, because I'm going a build that is entirely focused on mobility. Why? Because you need to avoid damage rather than tank it, right? If you're going this healing build, being mobile is just to make sure that you can weave in and out of fights. You can go into a fight, you can tank damage, and then you have the movement speed to escape that fight once it gets too rough or whatever, they use some sort of engage. So having this enhanced mobility is so important, because if I go this, super cracked lethal tempo build on Taric, where yes, I could go Rod still, even if I went lethal tempo right now, I'd still go Rod. But the problem with PTA and Lethal is just simply that you're locked in place, right? You have to commit to every fight that you're in. And a lot of times, people will abuse that and just target you. And if they just target you and your team just gives up on you, you have no escapes. This gives you more, safety, right? You can be more aggressive because you're more safe. And so, you might ask, like, what happened to Lethal Tempo? Like, why did, it says Lethal Tempo, why is it, almost hidden in the back here? Well, that's because of the Legend Tenacity nerfs. Previously with Lethal Tempo, you used to be able to go Legend Tenacity and Lethal Tempo, and that would take care of all of your attack speed. You wouldn't need Legend Alacrity at all, because of the fact that Legend Tenacity gave you so much tenacity and Lethal gave you so much attack speed that you would basically hit the same thing anyway. Now, this feels very cheesy because Legend Tenacity has been nerfed, so you might as well not go it anyway. If you really want tenacity, you got to pick up Mercs or something. And you just go Legend Alacrity and hope for some like ridiculously good like level 6, level 8 fight, because early on, PTA still beats Lethal, and later on, a PTA definitely beats lethal once you hit that threshold of, you know, basically above like 2.1, 2.2 attack speed. It becomes nearly impossible to manage Taric's passive with his ability usage. So it's just, it's not really effective, right? It's fun, it looks funny, and it could be good, like if you have like the correct build and like the correct opponent usually, which, you know, you're going to need tanks, you're going to need melees that you can actually stand there and auto attack, that are willing to stand there and auto attack you. If they're smart, they're high elo and they're kiting you, or they have ridiculous abilities, then you're not just going to be able to stand there and auto them, you're just going to have to do whatever. Besides, the main thing that Taric likes to spam is on anything that's, you know, not a champion, like wards or jungle camps or dragon or whatever, and so, you know, lethal doesn't really proc on that, right? So, you know, Rod is just better. Being mobile is just better. Even Rod, I forgot to mention, even gives you a little bit of movement speed. It gives you a little bit of movement speed for every you know, mana and healing restored by eternity, and it's a little hard to manage, but it's definitely nice to get the random speed boost because it's just so helpful. I'm finding that you can go Deadman's first, you can go Force of Nature. I don't have this on the build, but I've been going Wits a lot, and I think that Wits is actually really, really good, because what Rod gives you a ton of is HP, and what you don't have is Resist, and you don't have attack speed. So you get the Wits, it gives you the MR, it gives you the attack speed, and it gives you a little bit of nice clear damage, and even more movement speed, because Wits gives movement speed. It's kind of insane. So Force of Nature or Wits is a nice third, whereas, you know, I mean, you can build them first if you're facing AP heavy comps, but a lot of times the Deadman's, even though it's not gold efficient, just helps you so much with the Solarity and just like everything you're going for with movement speed, that I'm not really going these two builds. This is bad because you have to pick up an early tier, which delays your Rod, and this is bad because, you know, I don't know, a late Sunfire just feels bad, right? You have to go Rod into Sunfire, and then you're focusing on clearing, when realistically you just picked up Rod, now you're ready to fight people, more or less. So now let's get into what happened to all the rest of these builds. Like, they're in the other section. Like, aren't you building them? Isn't there an Iceborne angle or a Eventrod angle? Well, yes, but usually no. And the reason is very simple, and the reason is Black Cleaver. Black Cleaver, Black Cleaver, Black Cleaver. You go and look at the popularity of this nonsense item. Look at the popularity. It is Kraken Slayer, and then it is Cleaver. These are the most common items in the entire game. So, what does this mean for Taric? Well, if you're facing Kraken Slayer, how do you deal with true damage, right? And you could say, oh, but it has AD. No, shut up for a second. The passive is a true damage on autos. How do you deal with true damage? There's only one way, and it's flat true damage. It's not like Vayne. It's not max HP based true damage. It's flat true damage. Since it is flat true damage, the only way to deal with it is HP. So going a mythic like Rod that gives you a lot of HP is very nice and a lot more, you know, viable than something like a Heartsteel, because you can't really proc Heartsteel in the jungle, but I'll get to that. And Cleaver being spammed so much. Cleaver, Cleaver, Cleaver. Cleaver Lee, Cleaver Jarvan, Cleaver Heck, Cleaver Kane, anything. Cleaver is everywhere. And because it's everywhere, this basically makes all of the armor builds ineffective, right? Because if you're facing Hecarim, and Hecarim is going Cleaver first item, why would you ever go Iceborne, Even Shroud, or even like Frozen Heart Rush down here? Why would you ever go an armor item first item if their idea is to go Cleaver first item? As a Taric alone, just because you are playing Taric alone, people will build Cleaver. And so because they are going to build Cleaver, you must realize the only way to counter Cleaver is to not build armor or Warden's Mail. But that's very specific, and you can't use Warden's Mail without HP. So, you know, Addy is in the Korean Challenger Taric player, likes Iceborne Gauntlet into Visage with, you know, Lucidity Boots, which I actually like Lucidity Boots now, but that has a lot to do with me not realizing the strength of Lucidities, and also the fact that Rod and Deadman's together don't have any ability haste, so I've been liking. I need to fix this and have it show as Lucidity Boots, because I'm using them a lot more. But anyway, what I'm saying is, yeah, you can go Iceborne first item, but that's only if you want to win the game at like 15 minutes. If you don't win the game in that very small window of time at like 15 minutes to 18 minutes, you're not going to win the game. Because they'll just pick up a Cleaver, and now your entire build doesn't do anything. Whereas you can go basically Rod Deadman's, and you do exactly what Iceborne does. What does Iceborne do? It gives you an on-hit slow that slows people, and yes, it slows people in an area, so if they're all standing in the same place, great. But if they're not and you're chasing down single targets, you might as well have Deadman's, because Deadman's does the exact same thing. It has an on-hit slow that slows, it gives you movement speed as well. So Iceborne, what does it lack? It lacks the movement speed to actually get near the targets that you're chasing. Last game, I faced Draven top, Shaco, Zed, and Jinx Melio. And you go, okay, is anyone playing tanks in high elo? Hell no, they're not playing tanks in high elo. That's absolute nonsense. Why would you play a tank when everyone can build Cleaver? And so everyone's playing these ranged, kiting, mobility, damage champions. And so as a Taric, as a melee champion with no dashes, no movement speed, I must have the movement speed to actually catch them. So Iceborne doesn't help you if you can't get close enough to auto them, right? But on top of that, Cleaver, right? Cleaver is why I'm not building Even Shroud, why I'm not going Frozen Heart Rush ever, and why I'm definitely never building Jack Show. Because Jack Show at the beginning of the season was so good. It was just so insanely good. And like you'd go Frozen Heart and then you'd go Jack Show, or Jack Show with Thornmail is like such an incredible combo. But now it's just trash because a cleave is not the same thing as pen. So Taric used to deal damage, right? He used to deal damage using building a ton of armor and then using his passive to deal that armor with, because his passive Bravado has damage based on armor on hit. But Cleave reduces your total armor. It doesn't pen it, it cleaves it. So if you're going an armor heavy build, it's not only do you lose armor, which first part of this, if you are cleaved of armor and then a different champion pens your armor, it pens what's cleaved. So it basically, you get penned twice, which if you're stacking armor is absolutely suicidal, right? You can't do anything about that, right? A Kayn comes in, cleaves all your armor, and then a Draven comes in with Kraken, LDR, and then you have even less armor, and you basically have as much armor as a Yuumi, right, at that point. So there's no point in stacking armor in the current meta because of Cleaver being this strong. And why is Cleaver this strong? Because they don't know how to balance Cassante for high elo. Cassante's going, in the top lane, he's going Iceborne, Sunfire in pro play, and pro play is like, okay, how do we deal with, Cassante? And we buffed Malphite, and now Malphite's everywhere. Now we don't understand how to do it, and so they buff Cleaver. And I don't see a world where Riot in the current state of the game nerfs Cleaver unless they actually change the way that resist works, inherently. Because it is just that strong for mobile tanks like Cassante. Cassante is a mobile tank. That's what you need. You need a tank that has mobility, right? That's why you're not seeing, Ornn disappeared from pro play, and, a lot of other tanks you see only in the jungle as a CC bot or something like Sedge or whatever. Tanks, Rammus, you never see Rammus in pro play probably because of this exact reason, right? Cleaver just stomps it. Cleaver's everywhere. So that's why I'm not going Iceborne. That's why I'm not going Even Shroud. That's why I'm not going Sunfire Rush. That's why I'm not going Frozen Heart Rush, is because Cleaver is everywhere. Armor Pen is everywhere. And why build armor and give them the opportunity to take even more of your gold stats away by doing that? And so you say, okay, well, what about Divine? Divine doesn't have any armor. Well, what did I say at the beginning, right? I'm facing nothing but ranged auto attackers. If I'm not facing tanks, I can't go the anti-tank build, which is Divine Sunder. Used to go Divine into Frozen Heart or Divine Visage and some other things like with Tyr. If you're not facing tanks, you can't go Divine. That's basically what it is, right? And even in times where you do find a tank or two, it's almost always better to say, hey, I could either try to do the damage myself, or I could just go Rod and keep my carries alive and make sure that, the people that actually are dealing damage deal damage and stay alive. So I'm going a lot more of a supportive build right now. And you can maybe, I every once in a while pick up a Heartsteel, but that's just if they drafted really weird and it's they drafted 4 or 5 AD, you can go Heartsteel maybe into Sunfire, Frozen Heart maybe. And obviously you do this knowing that they're going to pick up Armor Pen eventually, but you just get so much HP out of this item eventually. And Gale is good. It's a meme. I know it says it's not troll, trust me, but right now it's definitely just a meme because you're in the durability patch, and after the durability patch, it's really hard to just one-shot people with Gale. And another thing is, what I guess this is another benefit of Rod, right? I think that in the current state of the game, that you could not build Rod if we had the old jungle items. Because of the new jungle pets is what actually allows Rod to be effective. Because the jungle item, I guess I'm not even sitting on, I don't have anything that shows first items. Or actually, wait, no, I do. Right here. It doesn't show you in this, but the jungle items have a scaling based on armor, MR, HP, AP, and AD. It has 5 different scalings. Rod gives you 2 of those and a lot of it. Right, it gives you a lot of AP and it gives you a lot of HP. So even though you might say, oh, you could pick up BAM using clear faster, you surprisingly don't even clear that badly with Rod, because yes, the jungle item has no mana, but you still have the scaling from the other two, and because you have infinite mana, you basically just, you never run out of your passive in the jungle. So yeah, I already mentioned that I'm going Ionian a lot. I just don't like the idea of Radiant. I think that going Radiant makes you rely too much on your ults, and if you're relying too much on your ult and just like you don't have the movement speed, whatever, they just wait for your ult. They say, okay, bye. You ult. They go, okay, whatever. Leave for 5 seconds, come back and kill everyone, right? But yeah, that's mostly it, and like the threats are still the same. Like it's Cleaver, Cleaver Abuser, Cleaver Abuser, Cleaver Abuser, True Damage. Dodge is autos. Like Echo just is a direct counter. Lily is just a direct counter. True damage, true damage, true damage. Right? It's just you just see true damage or max HP based true damage. Like people who can go build Bork, or people who can go like Divine Cleaver. Like Wukong. Like I don't have Wukong in here, but Divine Cleaver is like impossible to deal with. And why is Divine Sunder Cleaver being spammed by certain champions? It's because of the idea that exactly what I'm talking about, right? If you can't build, Divine does more damage the more HP you have. Cleaver does more damage, basically, the more armor you have. And so if you're an AD champion and you're going Divine Cleaver, not only can an enemy not build HP, they also can't build armor. So the only thing you can really build is the Warden's Mail, right? I don't know if I guess I don't have the Warden's Mail on here. I don't. But, a lot of times if they are more AD heavy, instead of the Deadmans, I will pick up a Warden's Mail into Randuin's. Note that I'm not going Frozen Heart. I'm going Randuin's. Why? Because you still want the HP. You want even more and more HP, because if they're still going Cleaver, you don't really want armor. You just want the Iron Will passive from Warden's Mail. So and you can also use it to proc Phase Rush, which is kind of nice. But that's more or less where we're at. That's why I'm going Phase Rush. If you're new to Taric, you should still be going PTA. And you can still, if you want to go lethal and go some crazy Rod build, you can. But that's the current state, and that's why all my thumbnails look the exact same. We're gonna work on a different kind of thumbnail layout, because you look at this and you see, wow, these thumbnails all look the exact same. Why? Because normally these are different every time, but now it's just Rod Phase Rush, Rod Phase Rush, Rod Phase Rush. So I'm gonna work on that. And yeah, I think I explained everything I wanted to, so let's just end it short before I delve into more ranting. So that's the current state of Taric in the game. Just spam Rod, spam healing, spam your Raptor's Trick. I'm using Raptor's Trick all the time. I'm going bot lane, I'm going top. I'm making my teammates, I'm spam pinging like everyone. It's not just Raptors anymore. It's everywhere, right? That's kind of how I'm being effective, is constantly keep your teammates at full HP. Convince them to not die, right? Convince your team, hey, you're half HP in lane. Try to not die just by getting a free heal. Like you're walking into Fountain for free as long as you come here. And as long as you can convince them of that, you can create advantages and create prio, right? If your mid laner's losing, you heal them their entire HP bar. They clear the mid wave. Now you have prio for Herald. Now you have prio for Dragon. Same thing can apply to the sides, right? So that's where we're at in the game, and that's the kind of gameplay that I'm doing. So that is about it. See ya.